You want me to let him out?
Yeah, let him out backyard.
Hey, dog.
His name is
Bucky.
Bucky.
Bucky. Bucky, come on, boy.
So you guys
Come on.
check out
Come on.
this garden and similarities and differences in what they do here. Do you wander around for a minute and then you want to take over, or?
Yeah, I'm all set right now.
Okay, it's up to you. Whatever your process is. Yep, good similarity.
I think that's pretty common about most gardens. And oh, nice. You're good.
Yep.
3 of these folks saw your talk,
She was there.
and these 2 guys are new, so they haven't seen your spiel.
You guys brothers? Twins. You're sure? How'd that work out? You're probably faster though. Cool. Well, I'm Matt. What was your name again? John. Okay. What were your guys' names? Milo?
Marlo.
Marlo. Jose. Noah.
Josepha.
Josefa. Matthew. Well, yeah. What do you want me to talk about?
I don't know, talk about this garden, the grow biointensive compared about seeds.
Cool.
Maybe some of the, we don't grow very many grains, so some of the grain stuff here. Yeah, space efficiency.
We can do that. Well, I work for a nonprofit out of Will. It's called Ecology Action. And we've been around since 1972. We have gardens in different areas in California and around the world. And we work with farmers and gardeners from all over, from all different climates, all different soil types, all different cultures, trying to figure out what's the most sustainable form of agriculture that human beings can come up with. And it just turns out that our ancestors were pretty good at it. And they didn't really have this whole thing like we do today with climate change, and this word sustainability wasn't even a part of their language back then. They just did it because it made sense. So in a certain sense, we're trying to rediscover what our ancestors did, how they grew food, because they weren't able to go to the store and buy fertilizers and buy seeds from over here. They took care of themselves on their own land. And so we've kind of gotten away from that as a culture, and the world is moving more and more away from that self-sufficiency, which is putting us in an interesting situation where if something goes wrong in our global society of trade and transportation, we're at a lot of risk. You know, all our food, that's a really cool apple. Where'd you get that?
Paul's Orchard.
Yeah. What is that called?
A pink pearl.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's where I'm from in Illinois, most of the food comes from California. So what happens if the food can't get from California to Illinois? Or what happens if the drought keeps happening? We got some rains last year, which was very unfortunate. And hopefully that comes again this year. But if the drought kept going, food production in California would go down, which means that the food production for the whole country goes down. And when you look at, you know, and you analyze how many miles the food travels, if I buy some lettuce in Illinois and it came from California, how many miles it took from that, you know, to get that lettuce from California to Illinois, how much fossil fuels were burned in all of that, how much carbon was burned. And then the agricultural practices with which that food was raised are very damaging to the soils and our ecosystems as well. So the answer is in each of us. And the answer is in each of us taking responsibility for our own footprint, our own ecological and carbon footprint, our own food production, bringing it back at home and taking care of our families. Then we don't need to buy lettuce from miles and miles away that was picked you know, in some field, in some other state, using agricultural practices that were really damaging. We could actually take it, put it in our backyards, and grow that food in a way that gives back more than it takes from the soil into nature. So that's what we do. We're trying to figure those things out, how to bring it into our backyards in the smallest scale possible so it's easy for us to do. So we don't spend all day raising our food, we can go out and do stuff still. And it turns out that we figured out how to grow all the food for one person in 800 square feet, which is about, each one of these beds right here is about 100 square feet. So in 8 of these, you can grow everything you need all year for your food. And that's very manageable for a human being to do. And that's really good news. Because at some point, this global transportation system of food and nutrients and bad agriculture is going to fail us in our lifetime. So it's really important that we start figuring out how to grow food again. And we do it in a way that actually builds our soils up as well. So you see like the sunflowers behind you. And those are fava beans that are dying. These are fava beans right here. You guys growing favas right now?
Not right now, but we
So,
shucked a bunch of fava beans.
Yeah, so that's what you shucked. So these plants are dying, and all the energy from this plant, it lived its whole life. And once the flowers opened up, and then the flower gets pollinated by a bee crawling in there, and then the seed forms. And when the seed forms, all the energy and all the awareness and all the life that's in that plant goes into the seed. It says now it's time to create the seed. So you see the tops start to die. And all the nutrients that are inside of this plant just start getting like a magnet. They just start getting attracted in here and they concentrate in here. And that seed becomes its own self. And we'll save this, and then we have a seed bank and we give those seeds away. So if you guys ever want any free seeds to start a garden or for your folks, you can stop by, and we have lots of different seeds. And we'll show you that in a minute. Has anyone seen this before? This is tough. If I was walking in here and I didn't plant this, I wouldn't know what it is.
You guys can step up closer if you want to look at the leaves.
Yeah.
Maybe pinch off a leaf and taste it.
You guys ever eat spinach?
Yep.
This is spinach. So it's a much different plant from when it's a baby plant or when we eat it as a spinach leaf. And the entire plant transforms. So it's really fun to take your plants when you grow them and let them go to flower and set seed, because the whole plant transforms into something completely different. And you get to see this plant go from this low growing leafy green, like this is broccoli. But spinach kind of looks similar when it's younger. It looks kind of like a lettuce. And then once it's ready to set flower, the whole thing transforms. And it goes from this kind of low outward growth to this towering.
What are some things, you guys, that you remember in our garden that right now we let go to seed? Lettuce?
Bachelor buttons.
Lettuce, right? The bachelor's buttons. Any other things that you remember? Do you guys recognize this? Yeah.
Yeah, and this is really good because it attracts lots of little bugs. And those bugs are really important for the garden. Like you see this one right here. Every time he crawls on that flower, he's pollinating, he's moving pollen around. And that's how the genetic diversity of our gardens increases. And that's really important for healthy plants, is to have good genetic diversity. So those little bugs are really important. You don't go around killing bugs before you identify what they are. Because they might be really important. What else are you guys taking to seed right now?
I mean, there's some things that are accidental, like the parsley and
Cool. Parsley's another one with a similar flower.
Beautiful flower.
And lots of bugs come to parsley.
We have got fennel flowering right now. And in general, we have a lot of weeds that have a lot of flowers. So we have those yellow daisies and calendula and borage and that kind of thing.
Yeah, these are pretty. You guys know what this is? This is borage. This is what Maggie was just talking about. I was quizzing you guys. But you can eat these flowers. And the way it works is if you have this flower like that, and you don't want to eat this part because, as you can tell, that is itchy in your mouth. So if you just pinch it like this, the flower frees itself, and then you can eat that. And it's good for you. And I like to take in my water. Do you guys carry water bottles with you? Yeah, so when you're in Maggie's garden, ask Maggie which plants you can put in there, because not all plants are good to put in water. Some are toxic, but it's very few that are toxic. But you can take these little flowers, you squeeze them, and then you can put these in your water, and it makes your water taste kind of florally, and it's really refreshing. And then there's other plants like we have some strawberries down here. You could put strawberries in the water. We put mint. You guys ever eat mint? Mint's really good in water. It's so refreshing.
Lemon balm is my favorite.
Yeah. Have you guys eaten lemon balm? All right, let's go get some lemon balm.
Hey Noah, did you see this color? Go back to his mind. Yeah, more space efficient because you have less path space. What do you think? Why do you think we have wider pathways at Noya?
Because we have more people.
Right, we have a lot of people, and can you imagine, like, sometimes when we have all of us working on a bed, how it would be in this kind of space? It'd be a little tight. So it's just different styles of gardening.
Yeah, we're really trying to pack as much in as small as space because our goal is to really, in minimizing the footprint of people's diets and their agriculture, even the pathways take up space, so we can get it even.
As you're walking around, you guys try to identify some different plants that you recognize, because at the end I want to talk about things they're growing that we're growing. Keep your eyes open.
You guys know what that is over there?
Looks like chard to me.
But it's like insane.
Super overgrown.
You guys know what this is? I'll give you $5 if you know what this is. And how the bugs will come in if there's an imbalance in your soil. The same thing is true for diseases. And this is really a part of like Chinese medicine and a lot of ancient medicines, old alchemy in Europe and stuff. But mold, where do you find mold?
On wet things.
Yeah, wet things, in dark places, where there's not a lot of air. So if we look at the 4 elements as guiding principles, which are earth, water, air, and fire, and we think about how life needs a balance of those elements in order to thrive, and different plants like corn, they like air and fire because they're warm and dry. Things like mold, they don't like air and fire. They're the opposite of air and fire, and they'll come in if there's too much moisture and earth, which is kind of cool and dark and damp. So in this climate where we have an emphasis of moisture and it's cool and it's foggy, there's not a lot of air and warmth. So the elements are more towards moisture, coolness, so it's more towards water and earth. Mold is a more of an issue. And so this plant's really good because it's going to help bring in more air. More air can move through here, and the mold doesn't like that air. So these different plants all have different needs, and right in this little area you'll see probably about 8 or 9 different varieties of quinoa. And so we're trying to find the varieties that express more of this kind of structure to them, because those are going to be more likely to be resistant to the mold, because they'll have more airflow. And what you notice with quinoas is they're grown in the Andes Mountains, really high up, in really harsh conditions with poor soils and cold, short growing seasons. And you'll see these shorter guys like this. This is the type of plant you would find in the mountains in the Andes. This grows really quick, it matures fast, it's really dense, it's like it can withstand the cold because it just kind of goes like this and huddles up all day. And then these varieties you see more grown when you come out of the mountains. There's rainforest areas, and they're like cloud forests, and so they're constantly damp. They're warmer, they'll be taller, and they'll be a little more airy. And then you'll see on the coastal areas you'll get stuff like this, which it's not going to be finished until November, and it's probably going to get 9 or 10, well, probably like 8 or 9 feet tall. It's a real beautiful one. If you rub with your finger, it's full of all these pink crystals. And it's a really beautiful plant. Pass that around, you can see all the sparkling crystals. So we're trying these different varieties, trying to see which one will work, and then for the seed bank, we'll save the ones and we'll distribute them to people so that they'll have more food. And they'll I'll be able to enjoy growing these plants. And food always tastes better when you grow it yourself. And the other cool thing about these really tall ones is that they produce a lot of compost material. So let's go walk by this compost pile over here. You guys have any questions? With an apple core, you can put that in the compost pile. Good man. So these are our compost piles. And one of the things that quinoa is really good at is growing really tall, especially this variety. Some of the other varieties grow short. Oh, and by the way, you can see the mold on the shorter varieties. You see those really short quinoa varieties, like this, close to this part of the bed that we were just looking at, and they're covered in like black.
Can you still harvest the grain from that? Or
Yeah, let me show you. So I wouldn't save this variety over and over and over again.
Right.
But if I was starving, I would eat it. It's still okay to eat. So the interesting thing about quinoa, one of the many interesting things about quinoa, is that it has on it a coating. And that coating is called a saponin. And those saponins are made out of salts. And the salts are not table salt, but they're mineral salts. And so quinoa can grow in soil that has too much mineral salts in it, where other plants don't thrive, which is another reason why NASA was like, we're taking this to outer space, because if they were to go to a planet where they needed to grow the food, they would not have the benefit of thousands of years of soil development. And soil is developed by when plants grow, and then they die, and they compost on the ground, and then new plants grow and they die and they compost, and all these layers of composted plant materials form the basis of our soils. So if we were to take quinoa to another planet and try and grow it, we would have to figure out how to... Has anyone seen The Martian? Mm-hmm. Yeah, remember he's growing food and poop? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be pretty important in the future. So we'd have to probably use some of that to help build our soils up, and we'd probably be using the quinoa because it's really good in growing in poor soils. What it does is it can tolerate those salts in the soil because it uses them. And these saponins, which are the seed coating on quinoa, it's got a really bitter taste if you're brave enough to chew on that moldy seed. I don't think it'll kill you. I'll do it. You just watch me, and I'll make a facial expression to show you how bitter they are.
Not
Yes.
that bad. I don't know. They've tried our bolting lettuce.
Oh no, nothing compares to that. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think it's as bad as bolting lettuce, actually.
No, not at all.
Make a salad with quinoa and bolting lettuce.
But like at that, like would you ideally cut it? Like I'm just trying to decide, should I let them get moldier and let the seeds get firmer, or should I cut it and
So your seeds are not as hard as these?
No, not yet.
Okay. What I would do is cut them and hang them.
Okay.
Yeah, and let them get nice and
Guess what we're
air-dried.
gonna do next week, guys?
Cut them and then raise them up in the hoop house.
Harvest quinoa.
Yeah, so you can like literally scratch that mold off of there, and underneath you'll see is like a shiny quinoa seed. These saponins, which concentrate the mineral salts, those are antifungal. So you know how people like in the olden days used to, like beef jerky, right? Beef jerky is just salt cured. You put a bunch of salt on it, and no bacteria or mold will eat it because it's so salty. So it's similar with these saponins, where they're these protective layer of salts that on that outer shell where the paper of the flower is, you'll get some mold and fungus. Some mold and fungus. I've not been sleeping enough and I've been working today. But when you get down to the inner part where there's saponins, you won't get any of that. Rose, you need something to do? Sweet. Did you water that flat?
Just on the watering can.
Oh.
Do you know where it is?
Did you check the greenhouse?
No. I will.
Try the greenhouse. And when you're done, if you want to chop off the heads of these 4 barleys over here,
Oh yeah, sure.
just put them in a bag.
Do you want seed and food or just?
They're all seed.
Okay.
Yeah, these look great. Yeah, these are barley. Chew on that. Don't do it. Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't
Don't do
chew
that.
on the fiber part.
but you can chew on this. He wants to chew on barley.
Why do you guys think it's so important to incorporate grains into our gardens?
Get that paper
easy.
off there first. Just take the paper
One,
off.
think about what you eat on a regular basis. What do you eat? Like, what makes you feel full?
Corn.
Cucumbers?
Say corn? Yeah.
Yeah,
How do you eat your corn?
On the cob.
Corn on the cob.
fresh corn.
Tortillas,
Yeah.
tortilla chips, taco tortillas.
Exactly. So like crackers and bread and these grains are so important for feeling nourished and satisfied and full. And if you think about like most of what we're growing at Noyo, we're growing lots of fruits and veggies, which are really yummy, and those can complement the grains that we could grow. So I think I just really want you guys to notice when you're looking around, look at how many of Matt's garden beds are these grain and carbon crops versus like lettuce and cucumbers and tomatoes.
Yeah, and what's really cool, like this was all potatoes right here. But you notice when this dries out, when the potatoes are dying here, and the normal procedure with the potatoes is you let the tops die back. These are potatoes right here on the other side of this barley that are in full stride, and they're collecting all this solar energy through their leaves and they're putting it into the root. It's really interesting. You'll watch the potatoes grow and you'll see them go like this every day. And then they'll hit a point where they go like this, and then they go like this, they go. And they just stay there for a few days and then they go. And you know when they do this like shrinking in thing and go like this, they're putting all their awareness into their root now. And so they're starting to grow a potato underground. So when it first starts out, it's a plant, there's no potato. You actually put a potato in the ground, that's the seed. It grows from that, it eats the seed, then there is no potato. And then once the plant grows out and has enough energy stored up, it's like, click, time to make a potato. And then it starts going, and it goes, potato. So the interesting thing is when you let this plant die back and you see this die out, there's not much left, and it actually like pretty much disappears. Like you're not, I mean, look at this. We went from that to this. And what is this? What's this mostly made out of?
Think about what we add to our compost.
It's one of the most important elements on the planet for life.
What are the different layers, the things we
Carbon,
alternate?
nitrogen.
Yeah.
So what is that? Is that nitrogen or is that carbon?
Liquid nitrogen.
Carbon's the crunchy stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is mostly carbon. Now the thing is that when this grows and it dies back, that's very little material for my compost pile. So if I'm trying to not rely on buying truckloads of compost every time I grow my food, and instead I try and grow my own compost materials by literally farming them and growing them, I might be more interested. Now this plant is pretty much dead. I put all its awareness into making its seed. How do I know if the seed's ready? It's not milky, right? Just like the quinoa. So when I press it or chew on it, it's really starchy. When I squeeze it, there's no milk coming out of it. So it transforms from this liquid, voluptuous, juicy thing into this dried out, stable, tough little seed that we can store, which is another reason why these foods are so important. It's really tough to store tomatoes and green beans and cucumbers unless you can them, unless you ferment them or can them. But these foods are really great because I can just take them out of their little piece of paper and put them in a jar. I don't have to do anything else other than cook them after that. So really important for the diet. Now, when this dies back, and Rose is going to take the heads off here and we're going to clean the seed later, which basically just involves taking the seed out of the hulls and
Do you guys remember threshing and winnowing wheat for pumpkin pancakes?
Oh,
Probably at Redwood. Maybe Dana Gray, you did it?
No.
Well, Noah wasn't here.
I don't, actually.
Okay.
Well, that's threshing means getting the chunks off, or getting the seed out of the paper husk, and then winnowing is when you have the paper left over, and then you go, and that's threshing and winnowing. And this one still has a paper on it, so I want to get that out of there. And there's ways to do this that make it really quick and fun. We lay a metal screen on the ground, and then we dance around on it. And then all the paper comes off, and then we take a broom and just kind of blow air over it, and all the paper blows away, and then we're left with that. So now I can store this, and I can eat it whenever I want. I don't have to can it or do anything special to it. But then what's left over is all of this. And feel the difference in weight between these two things. What's going to make more compost? That one? Now you owe me $1. All right, cool. Later.
We're all broke.
We're all broke here. No one has any money, but we got food, so who cares? Yeah, so there's far more carbon in weight in this barley bed than there is in the similar section of potatoes. So that plant is mostly made out of carbon. Where is that carbon coming from? Think about what plants breathe in.
Carbon dioxide.
Yeah, and then so a little bit of oxygen gets knocked off. The plant somehow takes that carbon dioxide in and like transforms it and absorbs some of the carbon for its own structure. And so now we're actually farming carbon in sunlight when we're growing plants. And so that's how we can help reverse climate change and global warming, is by taking some of the carbon out of the atmosphere, growing plants, and especially these plants like barley, like quinoa, like the oats behind you, like the corn you saw, like the sunflowers that are really tall, like the fava beans over there that are really tall, like trees. These things bring in lots of carbon, and then if we compost them, we let the microbes eat that carbon, and they break it down and free up the nutrients. And then when they poop out, everything's made of charges. Everything's positive and negative charges. You know, anions and cations. You guys know what chemistry is? I don't. So those things, everything, when you break it down to the smallest bit, it's either a positive or a negative charge. And those charges attract and they combine. So when these microbes are eating this plant material, again, if I throw this like right here, that's got nutrients and carbon in it that my soil needs to feed the plants, but it's not going to do anything until a microbe eats that. And the reason why we compost it is because if I just leave it out here, it's a harsh environment, even in this climate. But if I put it inside of a pile where I'm creating this kind of digestive organ that all these microbes can reproduce and eat and do their thing in the dark and the coolness and the moisture's conserved in there. Out here, there's night and day, there's drying out, there's moisture, drying out again, night and day, and then it just ends up being a little too extreme for the microbes to really thrive. So if we build this pile that's this organ of digestion where all these microbes can thrive and play around and eat and poop, what happens is these piles shrink down and those microbes take their poops, and those poops have all these charges in them. They're concentrated plant nutrients. And then when they poop them out, all these charges go and they lock together, and there's all these like excretions, like glues that come out of the bacteria and stuff, and it makes this crazy particle of soil that's amazing that we then put on our growing beds. And now we have that, and that's our food for the plants in the future. And it's, you know, even this, as it breaks down and those carbon structures get transformed into those magic compost particles that we call humus, which is after compost has broken down and it forms these really complex, beautiful particles of future soil. Then microbes continue to eat that. It becomes food for more microbes, and then over time, as they break down that humus, they poop it out and release more nutrients. So the key to a good garden is growing these plants that get a lot of carbon from the atmosphere, getting food from those plants, taking the biomass from those plants, which is just what's left over after you've taken the food off, building compost piles with that, and building good compost piles that are nice and sturdy and are at least, you know, this big, because it has to be enough size in order to buffer the extremes of drying out and staying wet and cold and daylight and night. When you build something like this, it literally becomes an organ of digestion. and then letting the microbes do their thing and break it down, and then we apply that to the soil. And now we've got this cycling of carbon and nutrients that happens in our farm, which means we don't have to go purchase fertilizers. We don't have to go purchase compost. And we save money, and we don't have to worry about, trying to find that stuff and paying, exorbitant prices for it. So it's too much blibber. You guys have any questions?
Why is there horseradish over there? Just out of curiosity, I know it's usually a weed.
Horseradish. Which one's that?
The flower?
The radishes.
Yeah, that's a regular radish. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
I wish we had horseradish. Man, did I plant
And
horseradish?
I think Josephus probably asking because we're always pulling. We have a lot of the wild radish
Yeah.
seed, so we're always trying to pull it before it makes seed pods because we
Isn't
have
that a
enough of
pretty
it in
flower?
our seed bank.
Yeah.
But those flowers are yummy to eat.
Yeah, and we're saving those for the seed bank. So that's a variety called Crimson Giant, and it did pretty well, so we want to save it and make it available. But a bug will fly on a wild radish over here, and it will carry the pollen on itself, and then it will bring it to that one and cross-pollinate if the timing is right. So there's moments throughout the year when different things flower. And if I'm looking around and I see wild radish flowering, like the wild version, then I know I better take care and protect those plants from being cross-pollinated. But right now I haven't really seen much around the area within eyesight and within this drive to the over there and walking over there. So I feel comfortable that it's all right. So what's happening here is these plants are getting pollinated. And then you can see after they get pollinated, the petals fall off, and then the ones down here are older, and these are all younger, and so they start swelling. So the petals fall off. That one right there will one day look like that one, which will actually swell and get about that long and about that fat, and have seeds that are about that big in them. And yeah, it's just so fun to watch these plants change and do their thing and live out their life cycles. And we've got a lobelia plant. We should go look at this. This is fascinating. Let's go walk around. And all these plants have developed over thousands, millions of years, relationships with very specific organisms. For example, me and corn. And over thousands of years, corn used to be a grass. It used to look just like that millet. It used to look just like your grass anywhere. And then people started saving seed, and they'd see a corn plant that they liked, and they'd save that one. And over time, they'd develop a relationship, and the culture would keep saving those seeds, and the corn would change, and they would keep selecting the corns they liked, and then they ended up with actual corn. Same thing happens with bugs and plants. So this plant right here, do you see that little white fuzzy? You guys all see that? So this plant has a relationship with hummingbirds. And when they come in, the hummingbird tries to get the nectar. There's a sweet juice, a nectar in here that attracts the hummingbirds. And they have those long little beaks and they have those little tongues. You guys ever watched hummingbirds real close? They always go like this. And they have these little string tongues that come way out. And so they put their tongue in there, and then they come down, and that flower opens up like that, and they get in there, and then when they leave, it taps them on the back of the head. And then you get the pollen. You see that little white pollen on there? And so you look at the back of the head of the hummingbirds that visit this flower, and they have all this pollen on the back of their head. And then so the hummingbird will go into each one of these, and it'll open it up like that, and get in there and tap, tap, tap. And every time it puts its pollen on the back of that hummingbird's head, and he goes into the next one, it rubs the pollen on that flower. And so it pollinates this entire plant just going in there and doing that. So it's another beautiful thing in these architecture of these plants and how they've evolved with other organisms. And it's something to learn from. And it's a coexistence, it's a cooperation that we need to also develop with nature. In many ways, we're like little hummingbirds going around and creating fertility and trying to grow things and encourage the spread of seeds. There's a really cool book called Botany of Desire, I think is what it's called. But it brings to the question, are we farming tomatoes, or are the tomatoes farming us? You know, when you think about how delicious a tomato is and how it's like an uncontrollable desire to pick a ripe tomato and like eat it and taste it. It's like evolutionarily like, oh my God, give me that thing. It looks beautiful. It's like plump. It's all different colors and it's so juicy and it tastes so good and so refreshing. Well, that's the tomato being like, hey, you know, come on over here, you know, pick me up. And then you eat that and you throw the seed out, or you save the seed, or you poop the seed out, and the tomato plant comes up near where you're living, or you keep growing it and working with it. And so you wonder, is it the tomato plant that's actually farming us, or is it us that's farming the tomato plant? And it's really fun when you start working. The more you work in your gardens and on your farms, the more you blur that boundary between myself and the garden. And you start to wonder, like, I'm learning all this from nature. Like, am I growing the garden or is the garden growing me? And you can learn every subject there is in the garden, which is another reason why Maggie's Garden and all the garden programs around here are so cool, is because you guys might see it now, you might not. I didn't see it when I was younger, but I look at it now and I'm like, if I had a kid, I'd be like tying that baby to me and be like working in the garden all day and like looking at the flowers with the baby. And you know, you can learn every subject there is in the garden, and you know, it's just full of life and it's living knowledge and it's very enriching. So I don't know, is there any questions? You guys want to see seeds? Let's go look at some. What they do is they move water in a spiraling kind of rhythmic way, and it spirals in one direction and then it pulses over and spirals in the other direction. And if you look at water flowing in nature, whether it's on the windshield of your car or it's the rhythm of the tides coming in or the waves rolling in, everywhere you look you see water spirals and has rhythm. And all this research has been done that shows that if you take water that's just been sitting in a bucket that hasn't been moving and you water your plants with it, they don't grow as well as if you give them water that's been moving. Specifically water that's been moving in the spiral. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's also just really nice to have this thing in the garden and do water. You can use this water and you can grow really healthy plants with water that's been moving. It has oxygen in it and is more dynamic than the stagnant water.
So if you're one,
We can water stuff. I can do this. Oh, you guys are lucky. I was gonna squirt you, but I can't because the valve's broken. So yeah, we can hook a hose up to this and water. I usually just water my flats. This is a really nice watering can. It's called a Aug watering can. It just waters in a really nice, gentle rain. And I don't water the whole garden like this because it would take forever, but I would if I could. And I actually invented a watering method. Did you see that one I invented?
you gotta show Matthew.
Yeah, you're an inventor. So the difference between that nice gentle rain and this is actually a really good watering head too. You see it's small little watering droplets that come out of there. That's a really good one.
That's a gram 10,000.
Yeah. So nerdy garden talk. Did a gram 10,000? Let's see if I can find it. What did I do with it? This place is a disaster. Are you videotaping this, Matthew?
Yeah, sorry.
Come on.
I'll edit it out for you.
Yeah, I actually don't use it all that much because it's kind of.
That's cool looking.
So what I did was I took two of those little watering heads and I just found some scrap copper and put this together. Does anyone not shower today? You got it.
Oh, watch it.
This is the most wonderful shower. You've got an example. Watch this. Isn't that nice?
Or Noah.
I gave him $1, so it's all part of it. Anyways, watch how this one waters. Look at that. It's like
Your
the,
hand in there, you guys.
Feel it.
That
Just
nice,
feel the energy.
Gentle rain.
yeah, it's like the Cadillac of watering hoses.
So if you're a little plant,
Yes, get in
you
there.
want that instead of, the jet stream on some of
You want
our
to get me? Okay. It would help if you feel better to even it out. But you're actually more mature than I am. So, all right. So this is our seed bank. You guys can hop in here and take a look. You can see this is my minty water with little rosemary flowers in there. It's really good. I'm gonna drink some. Oh, that's so good. So.
Is there room for them to squeeze into?
Yeah, you guys can squeeze in. This is fava beans that were saved from Carol Cox, who lives in Willits, in the year 2014. And then we've got, this is triticale, which is a mix between wheat and rye. So it doesn't have the gluten. Has anyone here got gluten issues? No, you guys are all healthy kids. All right. Here's lettuce seed. And you can just see how different all these seeds are. That's what it's going to look like, the little Christmas tree lettuces that you guys are working with. Here's the radish seeds that we were just looking at over there. That's what they'll look like once they finish. You guys have seen these, right? You know what these are? Scarlet runner beans, a Julie Castillo favorite. These are actually from Julie's garden. So what we do is we work with other gardeners in the community and we grow out different plants and then we talk to each other and figure out what works and what doesn't. And this is what people have been doing for thousands of years. This is how we have all these different varieties of corn and quinoa, is because people work with them, they develop their relationships with them, they save their seed from them, and then they share their seed. And so we're trying to get back to that because now we've backed ourselves into a corner where corporations are trying to control everything. What does that say? Hardcore Italian. So you are owned by the hardcore Italians. What is this? What's that brand? JanSport. You're owned by JanSport. You're owned by Adidas. What do you got? Surf Shop. You're a surf shop. You're owned by the Yankees and Fort Bragg High School. I'm owned by Chanterelle Mushrooms. Corporations own all this stuff. Look at all these labels. Look at, this was built by a corporation. This thing was built by a corporation. This jar was made by a corporation. This mate, this is a corporation trying to make money off all of us. There's a foundation called the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You guys know Bill Gates? I heard him on the radio the other day. He was the guy that made Microsoft. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is dedicated to the realization that every human being has equal value. That's just weird. That's like value, like money. They want us to all like have equal value, equal money so we can keep buying their crap. They've done that with seeds. And corporations are trying to patent and control seeds. They're saying that we own this seed and I own the genetics of this seed. And it's a really interesting issue because we know how things pollinate. Bugs land on things and bring pollen over. So if a corporation says I own the seed and a bug flies on it and brings the pollen over to my friend's farm that's growing a different type of corn, and that corn cross-pollinates because that bug took it there, Monsanto, the corporation that owns that corn, now can sue me in court and steal my farm because the pollen was carried over by a bug and now the genetics that they own are on my farm and I didn't pay for them. I didn't buy that seed. And it seems really stupid and weird, but that's a very real thing that's happening. And the people who are the best farmers in the world are getting attacked by corporations that are trying to control their seed resource. So it's really important that communities start saving seed, stop buying corporate seed, stop contributing to that beast that's going around trying to own everything, that's really pushing the destruction of our ecosystems. Monsanto does a lot of bad work in agriculture that hurts our soils, hurts our farmers, hurts our water, hurts our plants. And they tell us that they're all great and they're doing wonderful things, but they're just trying to make a lot of money and they're ruining people's lives doing it. But this is a way, when you save seeds in your community and you share them, this takes the power away from Monsanto. And you don't have to go out and protest and overthrow things and get arrested for fighting Monsanto. All you have to do is just stop participating in their program and start saving your own seeds. So that's just applies to everything. If you guys want to change something that you see is messed up, you don't have to fight it. You just have to create your own system and make it work. And do something that's good for your community, like start a seed bank, or help people grow some food, or help people read, or whatever. Find something that really contributes and do it.
And it can start small. You might be looking around at this garden, like this could seem really overwhelming and big and a lot to take on, and it doesn't have to be that, but I think I've talked with all of you, everybody has a little bit of something growing at home, and you can just try to expand on that or engage more. If your parents mostly do it now, just like hang out with them in the garden a little bit more, and maybe bring in some of your own projects, your own plants to take care of.
Yeah. Oh. And so these are two varieties of quinoa here. You'll see one's kind of reddish and one's yellowish. And the diversity in quinoa is just beautiful. And we have other varieties in there too that are different shapes and sizes and colors and stuff like that. So if you guys want any seeds, you're welcome to take some. Just let me know what you're looking for. Does anyone know what this is? You want to play baseball? Yeah, I play baseball. I eat sunflower seeds. This is another variety of sunflower. This is a smaller seed. Look at the difference between these seeds. See, much different seeds, but they're both sunflowers.
So what would be some things that you have that would be good for them to plant now?
Planting now.
Fava beans.
Yeah, like
Always.
turnips, rutabagas. You guys love rutabagas, don't you? I don't know, what are you putting in right now? We're putting in daikon.
Lots of brassicas.
Brassicas. Yeah. Should we just give you guys a bag of seed and then you can distribute them out?
I mean, you guys, would you actually take home seed? I don't want to take seed from the community seed bank if you guys aren't going to plant. You would take some? Awesome. Cool. So Josefa would take some?
Yeah. Let's see. Do you like rutabagas? Have you ever grown rutabagas?
I'm like literally just dug the first bed of the
Yeah.
garden right now, and I'm trying to get it. It's like really compacted, sort of plot of really dry, sandy, hardpan soil, trying to
Yeah.
put some life into it.
Yeah. Do you have any bachelor's button seeds?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm gonna be.
Gonna get
Actually, I might.
Noah
I might.
with some. He likes the bachelor's button.
So this is enough rutabaga to feed like the entire country. Probably. This is like enough for everyone to have at least 5 rutabagas.
That's amazing. We did plant some rutabagas. I know, yeah.
Let me figure out the best way to do this. So, are you the only one who wants rutabaga? Does anyone else want
If you
rutabaga?
could take a little bit for Noya,
Okay. I'll just give you guys a bag and then you
we'll
guys can.
divide it up.
Yeah,
Nice. Good job, you
good
guys.
for you guys. So one thing I find when, say, a lot of those crops we're talking about, in a coastal climate, it's a very long season. So succession. I'll plant a number of them anywhere from 2 to 3 times, sometimes 5 times a year, to keep them in optimum quality and have them a bit, a little more resilient for pests. And just if they don't work out in one spot, I have them in another spot. So as we walk, I'll constantly go over how it's very effective to have multiple areas of similar crops growing to then learn what's going on.
Cool.
So everything we'll see in the property, like for vegetable oriented, we'll start in 2 different trays. This is called a 72 or a 128. Those are all succulents. Yeah, those are fun. Very easy to propagate. Each one of those, and originally I broke off and started it brand new. So in the winter, when the vegetables aren't growing, I'll go around and collect the succulents, just like this. Break it off.
Stick it in.
Yep, take off some nodules, that's where the roots will start. And I'll just get my little chopstick usually, and I'll drop it in the soil. And then now it has no roots, I want to keep it in the shade. That won't give it as much stress. And then when it has roots, I can pot it up to a bigger container. That's how all these were started. So, in the vegetables, I have a 128 and a 72. Depending what size seed it is, as you guys notice, squash seeds are real big, lettuce seeds are real small. I'll choose what tray is ideal. These are all Swiss chard here, which is going to be my main fall and winter crop. Now, about 3 weeks ago, we started chards that were originally in here, which we then pot up. We pick out the healthy ones that are all there, and we put them into a 6-pack. They have a little more soil to grow roots and get stabilized. Once they're, first true leaves, second true leaves come out looking healthy, I'll check the roots, and then I go and plant them in the garden. Chard, on this property, I'll do about 5 plantings. So I'm always having very, lush, tender leaves, and just ideal harvest. This is all fall kale. And then there's brassicas, so it'll go into the fall and winter, kind of staggering. Cabbages, cauliflower, broccoli. Lettuce we'll plant every 2 to 3 weeks. Generally anywhere from 15 to 20 varieties. The idea, as you see with all these different varieties, are different colors. And then different, textures. You'll find when you're planting all season, they respond different. The red, the slugs don't get as much as the green. The green doesn't need as much nitrogen as some of the reds. The loose leaf are, nice to pick, and it's very important to grow many different varieties to see how things respond and have your own favorites. So, there's a good example of some different lettuces.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
Yeah.
You guys, that's a lot of different variety compared to the lettuces we grow. I would recommend walk down that little aisle and check them out.
So, when I used to do the farmers markets, I would go to the farmers market and I would try to put little 6-packs of lettuce together just like this, and then people would tell me they don't have a garden or nowhere to put it. So then I thought, hey, what would be a solution for that? So these are all what's called cut and come again lettuces. They're loose leaf. I pick the outer leaves, leaving at least 3 to 5 center leaves, allowing it to continue to grow. This will be able to harvest for 3 to 5 weeks. So then I can have, sandwich lettuce or small salads whenever I want. Very good for deck. The beauty of this also in the summer is it gets real hot up here, hot day. I move it down here. And then it's not going to stress it out. So I'm learning what the plants need to be happy. And then I bring it back out in the evening and give it, a little more light. Anything in a small container I fertilize every 1 to 2 weeks. Here I make my own compost fertilizer, which we can talk about. But a lot of this is, very important to keep things healthy. I make them really healthy in little seedlings, and then they go into the garden and they're ready to grow. Very effective. So you have Melissa here doing the next lettuce planting. We saw the little lettuces there. They're about 2.5, 3 weeks old, so now we'll do another planting. These will come up within, 6 to 10 days, and we'll go from there. You guys can keep following me if you like. There's some succulent wreaths you might like. While we're up top, we can go over some of the ways I'll build fertility. So when you're taking fresh kitchen scraps from the, any kind of fruit or vegetables, they're very rodent friendly. So I put them in the compost, the rodents are going to wipe them all out. So I make a closed bin where no wildlife can get in, and this is called a worm bin. And inside of here, if you guys like worms, are thousands and thousands of worms. And I can come in here and drop a nice top dressing of pulped carrot. They really like juicing material. I'll put it on top here and they come up, eat all the material they want, pull some down, and then create a little liquid fertilizer for me, worm juice, which I'll add to my fertilizer. And then all this will become worm castings, which later I can come in and top dress the plants. How I get all the worms to move around is by food. All of us in nature and natural habitat need food to live. So I stop feeding them over here, and I put my food source on this top layer, Wait 2 weeks, everybody moves from over there to here, and now I can dig this up and put new bedding in there.
Smart.
And it's a very effective way to kind of lessen the work. So there's always options to kind of find solutions. It's important they keep them nice and moist. Depending what time of year it is, I'll give them a nice little watering when I'm applying food. Always dig my hand in there and check in on them. They're very happy. So this is an excellent way for kitchen scraps. As you can see, I can put the lid on. No raccoons or mice or anybody can get in there. There we are.
Super cool.
Yeah. Back here, guys, is all the succulents that I kick out of the greenhouse when the veggies need room. So everybody gets put back here. And like I was saying, when I first found this succulent, it looks like this. And within a year, it produces more. And it can make more and more. Very rewarding. Easy to care for.
Have any of you done succulent propagation at the school gardens? Do you remember maybe doing some of that? Or buying succulents at the plant sales?
Yep.
Yeah? Cool. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really great for beginners because they just are so friendly.
Yeah. It's hard to kill one.
Yeah, I always tell everybody your best bet is don't overwater it, and it's fine.
Yeah,
You know,
for
if
sure.
you're neglecting it, it's a lot of the time the better way to go. And it teaches you what plants need. And then you kind of just learn from there. If you guys want to follow me, we'll go into the greenhouse. I had some tomatoes growing. Just don't mind pushing that plant around. So in this greenhouse, it's a very challenging airflow. It's kind of in the forest as we were just finding. So I will do my best to harvest what we can. So growing the tomatoes, I'm not sure how you guys grow them at school, but I'll planted these about mid-March. And I train them very diligently to remove all the suckers. So we can go over that. Let me find an example for you.
What do you guys think? Similar to what we do?
A little bit.
Yeah, so in strings. These are cherry tomatoes, so I'll let them break into more leads, this is called. So picture a little tomato when it started. You guys remember that? And right now you can see it starting to shoot off what's called a sucker. This is another lead. Now if I were to allow that, it's going to turn into a much bushier plant. Not as much airflow and it's not as much fruit cluster. So right in the initial stages, I break off the sucker. I now wait until this first flower cluster and the second lead I let break out. So then I now have 2 leads. I maintain that habit of removing the suckers and just training it for then all these main leads have a lot more flowers than just leaves. So I get a lot more fruit. And then you also get a lot more distance. I get 12 to 16 foot length vines that are quite happy usually. I harvest them probably every 2 days. So they're pretty productive. When we go down to below, I thought we'd do some tomato tasting. I have a bunch of examples for you guys.
Awesome.
In here, due to wildlife, I have to be very diligent on harvesting. I have, raccoons, squirrels, all the little rodent families that they like to eat. So sometimes a race with wildlife.
Can you talk about your irrigation strategy for
Yeah.
tomatoes?
So everything when I started, I believe in hand watering. So I have my drip irrigation for later when the plant's mature. So when it was a little baby, I come in daily and give it a nice soak down around the root mass for the first, 2 to 4 weeks. And then once it's larger, I'll start watering at a wider distance, encouraging deeper, longer roots. And then now I can tell from the height of the plant, understanding that majority of plants, the height above the ground is the same in roots below. So it gives you a very good, just overview of what's needed. It has big, huge roots, can handle a deeper watering. So then I turn the soaker hose or a drip tape on from anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. It's a little slower release, but a lot more effective in distribution, and it allows me to do a few other things.
How often do you do that?
It will fluctuate in the sense of weather. That's what we're going to go over in the garden. Is I constantly remind everybody that when you go outside and you're getting cold and you're putting your sweater on, probably don't have to water the plants so much. But if I'm going off and I'm taking my shirt's on, and I'm getting hot, be mindful the plants are in the same environment as you. So then you can start to look a little closer. I do what's called indicators. I plant plants around The other deeper root plants have shallow roots that show me signs of them looking like they need water. And then I can identify what kind of flow in the earlier stages plants need. Over here is something I kind of working on. This is basil. The weather right now is very common. It's more likely to be overcast and shady than sunny. So I try to create what's called microclimates. Every night I close this up. Even in the daytime it's normally closed. It's anywhere from 5 to 10 degrees warmer. It also allows the leaves to be less pest prone and a lot more tender. Any conditions like light, wind, stress make things tough. So inside of a greenhouse you'll find your chard, they'll call butter chard, or your salad greens are a lot more buttery. So there's very effective reasoning to keeping things happy. Yeah, the basil's doing quite well.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Here we go, guys. We'll go down to the garden and show you some. I'll just show you guys this bed quick, just to give you some ideas for home.
Yeah.
So when I first started about 2 years ago, I removed everything from this bed. There was no plants. I then put down a paper mulch and straw on top. Then all the plants I started up top, like I was telling you about, I then planted in design. I've only weeded the edge maybe twice in the last 2 years. So I don't have to go in and weed after I've built a layer that keeps down all the weeds. It's very effective for holding moisture and lessening work. So highly recommended if you're starting a new garden.
Cool. So I don't know if you guys caught that, but he said this is the wedding garden. I think Stanford hosts a lot of weddings and events and that kind of thing. So making this space usable, if you can imagine chairs on the lawn, and then it's pretty already. There's already flowers in the garden, so people don't have to get additional flowers for events. And if they're living, which is always nice. This is cool. You guys look up when you walk through here. Yeah, they wove the trees together.
Oh, we can start up top. So this is a pretty good example of identifying challenging systems and trying to create resilience. So if you guys look at this bed, you'll notice the sunflowers here. Those were planted about 2 months ago. I planted the whole bed looking just like that. Over time, about every day, a gopher took down 1 to 2 sunflowers. Wiggled them down, sucked them down. Luckily, right after sowing those sunflowers, I undersowed buckwheat. So I had a thick bed of buckwheat, just like kind of still remained in there. After, day after day, the sunflowers kept going down. It then looked like this. I scraped some of the buckwheat to the sides and plant lettuce. So what I'm trying to show you guys is it's very easy just to create solutions within little areas that are causing you problems. Just change it up. I've identified that lettuce has a lateral root, and the gophers don't overly affect it. You need to water it more, but it can handle having its under tunnels underneath the roots and still stay happy. Sometimes if I were to pull out these lettuces, I would see gopher tunnels all underneath this whole bed. Yet the whole lettuce bed is perfect. So just choosing the right crop for certain places will make your life a lot easier. All these sunflowers that I'm growing here we'll walk through. I allow them to fully mature and become bird feeders. So all the little birds come in and eat different types of sunflowers, depending how big it is. So that adds diversity and a little bit of fertility at the same time. So, very effective. Behind you I'm growing a wheat crop, just to try something different. It builds fertility. If it grows some wheat, that'd be nice. We have some geese that I let out grazing in the evenings. They weed the paths for me. They really enjoy it.
They don't eat the veggies?
Oh, I keep an eye on them.
Right.
Yeah, we work together.
Nice.
So,
Don't let them get away.
yeah. See a little babysitting. So as we're walking through here, you guys will see certain crops that you recognize from your own garden, like cilantro. And, after I've harvested the cilantro a number of times, I'll allow it to go to flower. Not only will this allow it to time mature seed, but right now you'll notice it's a very good parasitic wasp and beneficial habitat. So little bugs that are going to eat aphids and problematic things appreciate flowers. Very effective to diversify it. All these. Yeah. So I'll allow them to, if this is a blood burdock. Once the seed's matured, the birds will come in and clean it out. If I want to collect it, I can collect it. There's many different options. It's all going to add fertility from biomass and create habitat. If I want to grow vegetables to be healthy, I have to give somewhere for the solution to live. Being beneficial insects, any of the birds, all those things are going to play a part in keeping balance within my system. Very important.
You said that was blood burdock?
Yeah. Blood-clean burdock.
Do you use that medicinally or
It
as
looks
a
just like
veggie?
this right here.
Oh,
It's for a
perfect.
microgreen. One thing about these beds is there's gophers all through them. So especially these ends are very hard packed, and won't be very a little greener. This is an unfavorable area where I'm just having a crop cover the soil. Nothing wants to grow here, so anything that can handle it, I will find. Also, I encourage when you're looking here to see how these I would not want to eat, but this here is green. This is a soil test. I don't need to send any of my soil off to tell me what's going on. I need to look at the color of the green and the growth, the pattern of the plant to choose my next plan. So if it looks like this, it's time to drop some compost, build a cover crop, work on the soil. If it looks like this, I can maybe grow a little lettuce. Have some fun. So using your eyes, observation is going to be your number one thing in the garden. No one else can tell you what's going on but yourself. So very much effective. Yeah, microgreen is perfect at this size. So I found microgreens, I need a high number of seeds. So then I started, not overly palatable.
No.
Definitely, kind of like,
Yeah.
we use them plating a lot of the time.
Okay,
Different
yeah.
colors.
I mean, it's definitely beautiful.
Yeah, no. I actually use it in vases for bouquets.
Oh, yeah.
I like to plate around the vase.
Yeah, at some point it would be cool. I think most of them haven't interacted with the inn before, so just doing a little overview of where all this produce goes.
Of course.
The mission of the inn.
Yeah. So that's something we can lightly talk about. Let's move along because they're funny with guests. So, I'm a big believer of maximizing what I'm up to. So right here you'll see these will be some cauliflowers. When I planted them, I sowed radishes. I will then, before the cauliflower gets to full size, come in and harvest the radishes. This is an example of carrots and radish. So I sowed the carrots, and then I sowed radishes. It allows me to have, and this is a perfect example, a fallback. The slugs came in and wiped out all my carrots. They don't care for spicy radishes quite as much. We'll talk about that a little later. So the radishes still produce, and the carrots, I'll probably drop in some brassicas here, because not a lot of the carrots are looking very good. They're invisible. So,
We have that too,
Yeah.
case of the
Yep.
invisible carrots.
let's just speak of that then. So right here I've identified that I have carrots and radishes. I know those slugs, a little milky slug that comes in there and mows it down. The radishes look pretty good. So now I've just started to sow my brassicas and put a string of radishes around them. Because to me, that seems like an idea of creating a barrier. And I'll show you over there, it's working quite well.
Cool.
Yeah, just using plants.